First Nation and Native American Reservation Sightings, Part 14. Hudson Bay Cree Indians. While on the subject of Hudson Bay, northeastern Canada, I discovered that the term Witigo is a verbal characterization for a cannibal giant. Spelling variations often occur. I found many listed as Wendigo, Witgo, Wetico. Wendigo, in particular, was a name formerly used by various Eastern and Great Lakes Native American people, including the Hudson Bay Cree, each of them having their own characterization of the legend. Wendigo, Witago, Witico, Wentago, Wetico, Wendigo, Wetigo, Wetico, Wetigo, Witico, Wendigoag, and Ithaquah are a few of the varied name applications denoting native spirit totems, both pallid skin and hair-covered creatures that lived in ancient times just as they do now in the high mountain forests. As far back as the year 1860, the German explorer Cole translated Wendigo as cannibal and of Algonquin origins. The Tolowa and the Quiet People. The Tolowa Indians at one time inhabited the far northwestern parts of Northern California, just below what is now the Oregon border in Del Norte County. The Tolowa Reservation ranged along the Smith River in what is now Humboldt and Del Norte counties. In 1996, Dennis Chase told a story about a Klamath Indian who told him his grandmother was able to communicate with the Quiet Ones. They were invited to attend the jump dance, brought baskets of acorns in exchange for other goods, especially chicken eggs, late 1800s. Ann and Red Cody recently met and interviewed a woman named Catherine who is of Tolowa Indian heritage, her father an Irish immigrant logger. She is now 72 and recalls many legends about Bigfoot, though in no particular order. The following are her recollections about the stories she heard growing up on the reservation in Northern California. I remember my grandfather telling stories of a large, hair-covered man creature. As a young boy, he was hunting and felt like he was not alone. He sat still near a bush and waited to see who might be following him. Not 30 feet away was a tall, muscular, hair-covered creature standing behind a tree. He watched it for a few minutes until it turned and walked away up the hill. He told his father about this, and his father said that they were the Quiet People who shared the bounty of the forests and rivers with the Indians. Many had been seen, but it was considered evil to kill one, as they had never harmed the Indians. In the evenings, they could be heard screaming in the woods, communicating with each other. My brother Joe, 10 years my junior, saw what appeared to be a Sasquatch mother with a youngster in tow. The infant was playing with a stick near the creek while the mother stood stock still and watched. When she noticed my brother across the creek, she grabbed her young one by the shoulder, pulled him in front of her, and she herded him into the trees. She looked back a few times to see if Joe was following. He was amazed at how quiet and stealthy they were. The mother was dark and uniform in color, while the young one was more mottled, with lighter hair on the torso and shoulders. Her grandfather told this story. She put the year in the 1880s. In the morning, our parents gathered all the family to clean and fillet salmon from the catch. We would prepare the fish for smoking. We left the entrails for the animals and birds to eat. After a day of work, we packed up the fillets and started on the walk back to the fire area. I left my knife on the bank and returned to fetch it. As I approached the cleaning area, I saw the big hairy man squatting down and eating the fish entrails. When he saw me, he stood and roared, perhaps to scare me. He did not want to share his meal. I ran back and told my mother, and she said I should never venture out alone. We returned in an hour, but the huge pile of entrails was gone. There was more entrails left there than a bunch of raccoons or other scavengers could have taken that fast. Another story from the grandfather. We would see the quiet ones once in a while, mostly in the evenings just after the sun went down, sometimes in the very early morning. They knew we were there, but would not harm us. They would go out in the darkness so they would not have to be seen by people. They would sometimes come near the fire at night, but stay just out of the light of the fire. Your nose would tell you that they were near, as they smelled like rotted meat. Fighting. My father once saw two big creatures standing on opposite sides of a small clearing, yelling and throwing sticks at each other. He thinks they were fighting for the space, or perhaps for food. He saw them many times, but was never afraid. They would sometimes take his food at night, but they would never hurt people. Curious about a baby. When my brother was a baby, our mother left him in a hammock when she went for water. When she came back, a creature was very near the baby, smelling him, but it did not touch him. It knew it was a harmless baby, but was just curious. It frightened our mother, but the creature went up the hill when she approached. I was amazed to read the Toloa stories, in particular the bit about the yelling and throwing sticks at one another. That was behavior unknown to me at the time. Research has very few accounts, for many have been observed quarreling and fighting among themselves. This one seemingly cited behavior that spoke to the issue of competition between two Sasquatches. Another reported skirmish occurred in Nighthawk, Okanogan County, Washington State. After lengthy communication with the informant, I wrote it up this way. George Brousseau claimed his grandfather Elliot told him about an encounter with two Sasquatch due west of Nighthawk, off what is now Log Camp Road, or he believed near there. This was during the World War II. The year was 1944. Oblivious to the border between Canada and the United States, the hair giants would come down across the border from Canada in late summer. The Brousseau story occurred at a time when his grandfather Elliot was on leave from the South Pacific, hunting with some old buddies for fresh meat, which he told me was rationed by the United States government during wartime, along with sugar, coffee, gasoline, and tires. The hunters hoped for a deer, but would settle for a rabbit or a couple of wood hens, whichever came first. Coming out of a densely wooded thicket, they happened on a terrible ruckus. The men saw two big hairy male giants, each with their hands clasped together tightly, using them as weapons on one another. They swung their arms and clasped hands with full force, knocking the other down, until both were on the ground trying to get back up to their feet. The grandfather illustrated for the young and impressive Brousseau how they were making groaning sounds. It wasn't screaming, just sounds of intense effort being launched at the other with each swing of their great arms. His grandfather stood up, going through the motions, showing him the intentional force of the double-arm swings the creatures took at one another. The groans he demonstrated sounded like the efforts overheard in a hotly contested tennis match. It was very loud and not a sound you would want to hear every day. The object of the disagreement appeared to be a dead deer, where at one point the bigger Sasquatch, approximately 7 foot tall, picked up carcass and swung the dead deer full force into the side of the face of the other hairy creature, who was a shorter 6.5 feet tall, felling him to the ground. He didn't move. He lay there quite still, his chest heaving. His opponent stared down at him through the settling dust as if waiting for the fallen one to get up. Then as the downed, hairy one tried to get back to his feet, the winner took the deer and headed off into the trees on the other side of the clearing. The dust settled, and the other one got to his feet and trailed after the other one. It was all over in a matter of a few minutes. Brousseau's grandfather said there were other stories from the area, but none so violent or as terrifying to watch as this one. According to Brousseau, his grandfather remembered hearing about those big men that would come down from Canada and dive for bass around Palmer Lake, especially when the bass were spawning. The story is probably as close to a Bigfoot street fight as I've ever heard. To be continued, and thank you for listening. There will be many parts to the reading of this book. If you like this reading, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to be sure to catch the future parts. We welcome comments, but please be considerate of others. If you have had an experience with or about Bigfoot, cryptids, UFOs, paranormal, or any other strange happenings and would like to share them on our channel to be read, please email them to sharingofstrangestories@gmail.com. Our goal is to establish a channel that can provide an outlet for people to speak freely of their experiences without ridicule from others. There are many of us out there that have had these experiences and have felt that ridicule, but ridicule will not be welcome here. Emails will be read on our channel, so please keep them family friendly. If you want to remain anonymous and do not want your name read to the public, please put that at the beginning of the email or in the subject line. Thanks again for listening and stay safe.